My name is Peter Creer, and I will be here to navigate you safely through this Devanything session until lunchtime. We do have flying drones in this session, so just please close all the external doors now. No, just kidding, our drones aren't weaponized. So the question is now, am I really Peter Creer, and do you trust me for the rest of the session? But yeah, we're here to have fun. So we do have flying drones, we've got Swagger, we've got pipelines, we've got artificial intelligence, we've got machine learning, we've got bots, we've got all the great new tech in this session. So if data is really the core of everything that we do, then software development is the force that really transforms this data asset into value for the business. And in today's reality, every business is a software business, is a software company. You will be hard-pressed to find any business, large successful business currently, that does not either run their operations on software, that delivers their core business model on software, that creates their competitive advantage through the use of unique software, that buys or builds or sells software. Software development is everywhere. We call this Devanything. And it is our philosophy that software development is at the core of everything, and the landscape is open. And we must all open our minds to this, the possibilities and the potential that this open landscape can give to us. So we will share with you some insights around the new reality of software development, specifically in South Africa. Who of you have more than 5 apps on your phone? Should be everybody if you've opened it recently. More than 10? More than 20? More than 50? More than 100? I recently switched off my automatic updates on Apple, and after a week, it was 85 updates that were pending. So we have a lot of software. How many of those are business apps? Hopefully one. Hopefully you have got the EOH app on there. Guess? Less than 10? More than 10? Okay, less than 10 of those apps is probably business-focused apps. So we will share with you this new reality. And Greg and Luigi will share with you in the keynote some ideas of how we got where we are today and how do we need to prepare our thinking for this future of Devanything in this new reality that we're facing. Thereafter, we'll share with you 2 case studies, very exciting case studies, to show you how we use these new technologies in exciting ways in real South African corporate customers. Some of the things that we saw in the keynotes were a little bit far-fetched. It's real, but it's not here. We will show you things that are here, that is realistic and that can excite you in your business and how you embrace this future. So Denzel and Leonardo will share with you how you can use artificial intelligence to improve the customer experience in a bank. And Warren and Antoine will share with you how you can use machine learning to make your data tell a story that your business will listen to and that will help them make better decisions for value creation in the organization. So let's start. Let's welcome Greg Fullard and Luigi D'Amico to the stage. They're both business unit executives in our EOH Digital Platoon. Welcome, Greg and Luigi.
Excellent. Thank you, Peter. Excellent.
How's it, everybody?
Hi, everybody. Please grab a seat. Guys, be very relaxed. Take it easy. We're not going to, nobody's going to kill you. But the people in the front rows, please just be careful. You did sign disclaimers sitting in the front rows. Yeah, we're just going to have a lot of fun. Just to repeat it, but this is the track that brings everything together. This is where the rubber hits the road, and this is where we have a lot of fun. So once again, I'm Luigi, the crazy Italian, so I'll be speaking a lot with my hands. So if you understand sign language, you're with me. This is Greg. I don't know what you are.
No, nobody
actually,
really
but
knows.
he's that guy.
I'm here as well.
He will be that guy for you. All right. So, I mean, what we've heard now is we've heard a lot of, just in this morning session, we've heard a lot of buzzwords that are in the industry. And, this is it's just flooding our industry. I mean, whether you go into a sales meeting or you go into a job interview and you hear candidates have a list on their CV on how many buzzwords they've got, and you've even got business people throwing these terms off as if they know what it really means. And that's the thing, is like we're all kidding each other other like, oh, you do microservices? Yeah, I do. You check my microservice. So I mean, that's the thing, is that, everybody's using these very big, complex words and, trying to pretend that they know what it is. And what we're going to do is we're going to demystify it. We're going to put some of these things together, and it's not that complex. Once you know how, you know how. What we have here is a big orange box, and in the box, we're going to unpack the boxes. I think it's a good thing to unpack a box. It's a big orange box, so it's mystical. So you at the back there, you can come forward if you want to. Be very free to. So Greg, my handy assistant, will unpack our box for us.
Got a hat here. I don't know. Is that a microservice?
There we go. He can play the clown for now. That's fine.
For now. Cool. So then we've got, here is a microservice. We've got a microservice running on Node.js here. So there we go. If you've got one of those, then that's great. We've got continuous integration. Anybody do continuous integration and deployment? We're running that on Jenkins. I don't know. We've got a little duck here. I don't know what we would do with that, but we'll see soon enough. Then we've got containers. Containers running on Docker pretty much most of the time, so I'll get that one over there. That's a cucumber. And interestingly, that is another cucumber. So if you ever need a cucumber, we are going to sort you out. So I'll put the cucumbers over here. Cucumbers, just in our world, you will see a little bit later, is what we use for automated testing. Then we've got GitLab, distributed version control. So that's also in the box over here. That's interesting. That might come in later. If anybody wants to leave, do reconsider. All right, then we've got another one here. Documentation as code. Everything these days is as code. So you've got infrastructure as code, documentation as code. Then it's really just one more here.
There we go.
Is this guy? It's the Parrot, I don't know, Bebop 2.
Bebop 2 drone.
Supercombobulator. There we go. I'll put that over there. And we're going to figure out, I don't know, how to use these.
That's it. So we've just unpacked a box of boxes. And this is typically, in the South African industry, we're very good at buying boxes. We're very good at buying pre-packaged solutions without having that ability to dev anything, to be able to code it and to be able to develop in your own style. And I'm not saying buying the box is wrong, but there are alternative ways to getting you to that innovative edge. So with all these, the interesting thing about all these buzzwords is that you can't use one in isolation. You need to piece 2 or 3 of them together to create business value. But how do you do that? And as EOH, we call this the Dev Anything principle, the Dev Anything framework, and that is about just linking various boxes and various tools and components together to create additional value. So what is a true developer about? So a true developer is somebody who's creative in the digital arena. He just wants to play with code, and he just wants to get some results out. A true developer loves to play with lots of different technologies and just geek out on really simple things. And does it make sense? No. Is it fun? Yes, it is. And that's what we need to give to our South African developers. We need to give them that fun back. Because all that our developers are doing is, shucks, we've got a feature, we're deploying on Friday night, and then we have to be awake at 2 in the morning to do the production deploy and stuff like that. And our developers are just very much feature-driven. And what we need to do, kind of like this guy, does it make sense to do a backflip on a bicycle? Absolutely no. I mean, there's so many risks to that. That is crazy. We don't want to do that. But is it fun? Absolutely, and you get that authentic joy over there. So let's look in the box here if we have anything else. So this is the controller that came out of this box. You can buy the box, and you can buy the controller. So I'm going to make a principle here, is that with this controller, you're limited to what this can do. There's up, down, left, right, and you can fly it here, fly it there, take a camera, photo, and so forth. But you're limited to what this box provides us, by what the manual provides you, by what the controller provides you. So what we're going to show you today is how the Dev Anything principle of just linking things and getting into the integration of tools where you can extract additional value. So Greg, if you can go there. So what I'm going to do quickly over here is we actually do have a drone. It's not one of those killer robots as you saw just now. It's a more tamer version. We haven't coded the killing function yet, but I'll let you know when we do. That's only later in the demo. So I'm just going to switch out of here, and let me go here. Let me connect to it. Greg, is it on?
It looks on.
It looks on. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
There's a light.
There we go. I'm going to connect to my drone. So as you can see, this thing can just do up, down, left, right. We're going to do something very cool. So what we did is we got a bunch of developers. We coded, we integrated with the drone. And then what we did is we decided, well, that thing can't do a back flip. It can't do a front flip, can't do a right flip. We're going to do that with code right now. I'm not going to show you the code right now. We'll get to that later on, but I'm just going to show you the concept just to get it out there. Mr. G. That's the audio guy at the back. Okay, so some of you might recognize this music. I'm just going to wait for the moment. Here we go. Okay, so this is all coding in the output. So it's going to tell us what the battery level is. It's stopping, it's going up, it's going forward for 2 seconds. It's going to go higher. And then what we're going to do here is it's going to do a backflip there. And Greg is shooting it because so
Just to try.
and with a good try. So this is our drone here. It's going very close here. There we go. And it's busy fighting me. So as you can see, with R&D development, not everything goes well. But what we managed to do here was a flip. And this is where you need to get the innovation going and get it done. So there the flight path is complete. It didn't go quite as well as we thought. But I mean, there's a lot of mechanisms here. And there's a lot of different motors here. And you're controlling the speed of every motor to do a backflip and so forth. And there's a lot of factors involved in this. And so this is just to give you an example of what you can do with integration. If I just flew this with a controller, it would have just gone up, down, left, right. But with the drone now, we can actually do additional things over here. Okay, so let's move on. Let's move on to the next slide. Let me just go back to here. So that was just with some basic JavaScripting code. And if you expose that to your developers to actually innovate, you will actually be able to bring your business to the next level. And we'll talk through that as we go on. Okay, let me go here.
Very interesting.
Let's go. There we go. Okay. There we go. Okay. So traditionally in South Africa, we're very good at buying boxes, and we're very good at just buying boxes and putting them down. And whatever America does, whatever Europe does, we buy the box and implement it in our organizations. But the market has changed now, and we need to change it a bit. So what do we have is in a Harvard business did a case study on Kodak. So Kodak was very good at what they do. They were obviously very good at film, printing film, and they took over the photography industry. But what happened in the year 2012, and they were earning billions of dollars of revenue, and in 2012 they filed for bankruptcy, and I think most of us know about that. But the key thing that happened there is they were blinded by their own traditional methods of doing business, of success, and they didn't allow themselves to have fun. And the point is, did they innovate? Yes, they did innovate. They poured millions of US dollars into building the first digital camera in 1975. They even in 2001, before Mark Zuckerberg purchased, wrote the first line of Facebook code, Kodak bought a website called oPhoto. And what Kodak missed was they were doing these innovative things, but it was only in their current business models, the current way of doing business. And so and they didn't get it that they had to diversify. So they had the digital camera innovation, they had the O photo, but what they didn't do is they could have been Facebook and Instagram wrapped into one, also embedded cameras, all wrapped into one today. But instead, they sent everybody, take digital photos, send it to O photo online, and then go back to the store and print it manually. And they missed a key ingredient because they were so focused on their current business models and how to make money. So if you buy a box, at best, it's going to keep your organization's lights on. It's going to keep the diesel engine running. It might provide some efficiencies. It might provide some profitability, but it's not going to future-proof your business. If you buy that box from a vendor today, you know, the thing about these boxes is that somebody thought of it 5 years ago in the States or somewhere, and now it's only coming to our shores today, 5 years later, and then we implement it. And that doesn't future-proof our businesses going forward. So, I mean, if we look at Airbnb and LinkedIn and Google, did they buy a box? Did they implement SharePoint? Did they implement SAP? And I'm not saying those are bad things. Did they implement IBM to get where they are today? No, they didn't. And what did they do? What was their secret sauce? And this is what I consider is Devanything. It's where you allow coders to take open source technologies, to integrate with tools. And yes, there's some pain along the way. You can get some blades and everything. There is some pain along the way. But what you learn from that is that is where you are at the disruptive edge. And you learn through these things. And you're able to future-proof your business. If you just buy the box, you're buying technology, don't kid yourself, that is roughly 5 years old. And then you're trying to implement it in your business and say, no, we're being innovative and disruptive. No, you're not. I think you are. You're future-proofing your current business model, but you're not looking further wide and so forth. So just make sure that you don't have a Kodak moment in your organization where, yes, the way you earn business, you're selling fruits and vegetables and you continue selling it, or you continue selling insurance, you continue selling products, but you need to diversify out of that thinking on how you could do something. Just an interesting case on the Kodak thing is Fuji was always the distant second guy. You know, in 1990, 1980, in the early 2000s, Fuji was always the distant second, and Kodak was the poster boy. And what is interesting about Fuji is they said, okay, cool, we're printing film on digital cameras, but we're going to diversify. And today, Fuji is a multi-billion rand dollar company every year, and they're not only in the photography industry, they are now in healthcare, they're in document solutions, they partnered with Xerox. So that is the way they future-proofed their business in the digital revolution. So in the future, we mustn't kid ourselves, is that every software company, every company in the future is a software company. I mean, you absolutely have to be a software company. And with the fourth industrial revolution coming, so we had the first, second, and third industrial revolution, this industrial revolution that we have today is the technology revolution coming up. And the developers are the secret sauce. The ability to code and integrate and bring your business to the next level is all done by developers. So this is very much easier said than done. And I'm going to hand over to Greg, who's going to take us through the next couple of slides. I'm going to bandage up my wounds here and everything. But I mean, that's the price of innovation. I'm not saying you have to do that. And that wasn't actually part of the script to get cut up like that. but yeah, so that's it. Yeah. So Greg, easier said than done.
Great stuff. There's your hat.
Thank you.
So you guys must really just say a prayer for the demo gods, because that's not the only demo we're doing. So let's see how it's going to go. Okay, so let's chat a little bit. Ooh. There we go. Chat a little bit about physics. Anybody here Big Bang Theory fans? Everybody loves Sheldon. Hey, he's the coolest guy ever. I barely understand anything that I watch on that show, but the key thing that I learned is that string theory is very difficult and includes multiple dimensions of the universe we live in, or of the place we live in. So the idea with the multiverse theory is really that that there are multiple parallel universes that we live in at the exact same time, with slight differences or possibly even big differences between those universes. So we've got a little image here. On the right-hand side here, we've got one Earth, and then bottom left, we've got another Earth, and those exist at the exact same time, but with very different realities applying to those. And for me, that multi-unit or multiverse scenario is actually a very good analogy for the South African IT industry, because we come to conferences like these and we use all these big terms. We talk about blockchain, we talk about, as we spoke about earlier, microservices, we speak about container orchestration, we speak about BDD, behavior-driven development, we speak about machine learning, continuous integration, and that is great. I love that new technology thinking and seeing what is possible. But Luigi alluded to that earlier, is we often just use the terms, and there's another entire parallel reality that I see on a day-to-day basis. Now, I tend to have a bit of a negative outlook on life most of the time, and perhaps that negative outlook allows me to see some of these things. But when I go on projects, and we do tons of custom development projects, we see some interesting things. The real reality is, while we're talking about microservice, we're talking about blockchain, etc., but when I go on projects, probably 1 in 10 developers that I talk to even know what behavior-driven development is. We go to projects and we see still today, this very day, people opening Eclipse, exporting an ER file from there and manually copying and pasting it onto a production service deploy folder. That I see today. I, in fact, saw it earlier this week. So this is a reality that we're living with. We talk about being agile, and everybody is agile in Scrum, and yet when we speak to customers, when we're engaging with customers, they're asking for fixed cost RFPs. So if there's a contradiction there. If you want to be agile, you can't pre-guess the costing of things. These things don't match up. Furthermore, we've got, when we speak about microservices and Swagger documentation, I generally get a blank look, except the people who come from the 70s who think I'm talking about the way John Travolta walks. And that's all cool. I mean, we love this difficult world that we want to improve on, but we need to be cognizant of this reality, because you can't be talking all these big terms and then you still have developers doing manual deployments. This is a world we need to change, and it's a journey that we're certainly on, but it's not all bad. We've got some Bigfoots and Yetis in our country. They walk among us. Some of them are even seated here amongst you, of people who truly are the masters of their art, real solid, rock-solid developers in our country today. The problem with those guys is you're not seeing them very frequently because they're working themselves to death. They are generally spending their time on projects helping junior developers set up their IDEs, and then they do their development in the evenings, but they do exist. And we need to find and cultivate that culture of giving these Bigfoots the stage that they can stand on and actually show what is possible for them. So let's just have a look. If we talk about actual development in South Africa, so we work quite closely with OfferZen. They are our primary recruitment agency that we're using, and they actually published an article the other day where they said, now I don't know exactly the source of the data that they used for this, but they reckoned that in South Africa currently, based on their data, they reckon there's about 10,000 developers in Cape Town, there's about 30,000 developers in Johannesburg, and 10,000 spread out in the rest of the country. That's it. There's 50,000 developers in this country. Now, granted, the data might be slightly off, or it might be higher, or might be slightly lower, but the reality is that is a frickin' small number. For a country of 40 or 50 or 60 million people, that is the only developers we have in this country. And then I was starting to ask myself, but okay, that's very interesting. Let's just dive into some more data points here. I went to Stack Overflow. So Stack Overflow is like the de facto homepage for every developer in the country. Everybody here knows what Stack Overflow is. Hey, I'm assuming so. Hands up, little slight nod. Cool. So Stack Overflow runs a yearly developer survey where they go in and ask, okay, for the developers out there, answer a couple of questions for us, and then we kind of collate them together and get a feel of where is the industry going, where are developers going. So this is just one of their data visualization graphs. You can see South Africa does feature there. We're not the only place in Africa. We're slightly bigger than the rest of Africa, perhaps not bigger than Egypt. This is participation in the Stack Overflow survey, but the reality is we're small fry when compared to the rest of the world, and that's something I certainly want to change. I don't want us to be small fry. I don't want us to be the best in Africa. That's cool, but I want to be amongst the best in the world. That's where we're striving towards, and there's a way to get there. So another thing, just while I'm on the Stack Overflow topic, something that I'm often seeing is, while every developer uses Stack Overflow, there's an interesting observation. If you actually go to a stand-up in the morning, the whole country currently uses Scrum, and there's stand-ups at 9 o'clock. If you walk into any bank, there's a bunch of people standing next to a wall looking at little cards, eh? So that's the standard at the moment. If you go to all of those developers, just do this tomorrow, the day after, ask those guys at the stand-up, who here has an actual Stack Overflow profile? Not who has open Stack Overflow, who has a profile? What is your profile score? Have you asked a question on Stack Overflow? Have you answered a question on Stack Overflow? Those are interesting questions, and I ask that regularly to people, and the feedback I'm getting is about 30% of developers are really active contributors to Stack Overflow. So that may actually be, whether that's the cause or the effect, it is definitely a sign that we are missing a trick. So we are developers, but we are not actively participating in this global community of development. Then I had a quick other look. So obviously we have a government that sometimes struggle to perform. I found this other organization, what are they called? I think I put it on the slide, the Center for Higher Education Transformation. This is a bunch of data scientists who are interested in education in South Africa, and they pull the data from the Department of Education, etc. And this is the numbers that they published. This was 2015. Publicly funded universities in South Africa. So from that, we've got currently, and I was in 2015, but we can assume it's probably roughly the same at the moment, is 37,000 undergraduates enrolled in computer and information sciences courses and 4,200 postgrads. So we've got roughly 42,000 in here. Isn't that an interesting number, hey? We've got 42,000 people currently enrolled in our universities doing these studies. So that's probably, let's assume it's 4-year courses. So we divide that into 4. It's about 10,000 graduates every year. So if we get 10,000 graduates, and I go back to the previous slide, what the hell is happening to the other guys? If 10,000 every year is coming into this industry, obviously people with active goals to become software developers, and yet we only have 50,000 developers in the country. What actually is happening? So I think there we need to start to ask some questions about what happens to somebody when they actually enter the industry and actually start working. So this is a graph that I stole from Kathy Sierra, for all of you guys who perhaps love the old Sun days when Java was still run by Sun, would be familiar with Kathy Sierra. So she put together this slide in terms of mastery. So you'd see there's two key lines there. There's the suck threshold, and then there's the kicking ass threshold. So those are the two key thresholds that you need to cover when you want to become a master at anything in your life. And I'm currently reading a book on mastery about how to become the next Leonardo. I gave up pretty soon. I fell in the I suck category. But the point from that book was really that if you want to be a master of anything, whether it's playing the guitar, learning to dance, learning to code in Java, it takes 10,000 hours of effort. That is it. It actually doesn't really matter how much talent you've got. You just have to work hard. That is all that is required in almost any field in the world. However, some people work harder, so they reach that 10,000 hour threshold faster. Some people perhaps are slightly smarter, so they take up things earlier and they can show results faster. But if you want to really become a master, you need to put in all the work. If you go and look at any of the amazing tennis players who are currently at the top 10 of the ATP ranking, those guys aren't sitting and chilling. They are still working hard to this day, because working hard is what's required. Now, if you, in the process of starting out, before you've put in all of these hours, you lose faith, because everybody, doesn't matter how good you are, when you start doing something, you feel like, I suck at this. So for me, for example, when I started to learn to dance, I was like, I really suck at this. And I want to be honest, guys, I really suck at this. So I gave up. I said, no, frickin' hell. I am a white dude. I probably should not try and dance. Some of our other developers, they tend to laugh at me. I don't know how to dance, but I certainly have no shame. So it's a good combination. But then some people do go over that suck threshold. So you do learn to do stuff well. But the key thing is you mustn't then get comfortable. Get out of your comfort zone, because that's probably where the bulk of our development industry in South Africa is, that middle ground of people who can do their job, but who don't push ahead through the kicking ass threshold. You need to say, okay, cool, I can do this thing, but let me try something more. Let's learn harder. Get up early, get up at 4 o'clock, make sure you actually learn more stuff, because you're never good enough. There's always some frickin' third-grade person in the Philippines who can already code as well as you can now. That is the reality we're living in. So, okay, bringing this back then to our multiverse world, we've got these two problems. We've got a country where we know we need to innovate, but we've kind of been lulled into this world where we buy stuff, buy products, we buy our CRM, we buy our ERP, we deploy them, we get some consultants in, sometimes they fly in here from Germany, they configure it, and then we're happy. We know that world has changed. Luigi explained how if you want to continue down that road, you will always be 5 years behind everybody else in the world. And the world is getting more globalized, so it's not long before Google decides, no, they're going to launch Google Bank. And what are you going to do then? If you're 5 years behind Google today and they start launching a bank, then you've got serious problems. So you need to innovate. That's our one problem. Our other problem is we need to bring the skills up. We need to find these amazing Yetis and Bigfoots that are amongst us, and we need to give them everything they need. That's the two-pronged approach that we need to follow in our country. So it's really two things we need to do at the same time. I kind of want to say that we can possibly solve them at the same time. But let's just chat about how we can find some of these amazing Yetis that we have in the country. So firstly is, if you're interviewing somebody, don't ask them what they know and tell me about your experience and stuff. That means almost nothing, because when somebody works on a project that uses Kubernetes, uses Node.js running on Red Hat Linux, and let's say deploying using Jenkins from our boxes here, that person on that project probably does only one thing. But when they come into your interview, they tell you, oh no, I know this, and I know that, and I know that, and I know that. But the reality is they're not telling you what they know. They're telling you what the project that they worked on knew. So you want to find out what this actual guy knows. So my approach, I'm going to give him all my secrets, because a big part of our business is actually finding all these Yetis. That's what we do very well, is when you're interviewing somebody, even before the guy comes in, ask for his Stack Overflow profile page. That's as simple as that. Go check out his Stack Overflow profile. What is his score on Stack Overflow? Because that's going to tell you, is this guy really a developer? And is he actually somebody who contributes to other things? Is he somebody who goes home on a Friday because he doesn't have a life, he doesn't have a girlfriend, because he's going to code? Those are the people, sorry for them, but those are the people we want to find and bring into our business. Second thing is find out, well, what's your GitHub profile page? Show me what you're contributing to open source today. Because if somebody contributes actively to an open source project, that is somebody you want to bring into your business. Then you need to look at industry certifications. Yes, degrees and things are important, but industry certifications are probably the most important thing for us. So we're Java developers. So for us, the Oracle Java development certifications, it counts way more than whether somebody learned how to do bubble sort in third-year computer science. Bubble sort is interesting, of course. It's the coolest type. It's not the fastest sorting algorithm, but it's certainly the one with the coolest name. Then we've got a whole bunch of these guys who are starting their own grassroots initiatives. They are not here to make money. The meetups, so most of this actually happens in Cape Town. The Cape Town guys, always cooler. I mean, it's so sad. But, I mean, we're here in Joburg. So we think code is also based in Joburg at least. And there's a ton of meetups here in Joburg, actually based here, where guys doing Python, guys doing Hadoop, guys doing Java, guys doing Node.js. These are just random guys who want to code. And they're getting bored at the office, because at the office, they're busy doing some mundane entity mapping with Hibernate, and they're tired of that stuff. And who cares cares about filling in a deployment form that you need to sign and guess what you put into that deployment for the day. So people don't like that, so they go to these meetups to do fun stuff. We explained earlier, look, it was an exciting demo, but it was fun. So these are the guys who are pushing the industry towards what is new. What you need to do is either join those guys or support them. So if you've got a nice big boardroom, find a meetup that does something that you're related to and come buy them pizzas once a month. It costs almost nothing. And then you're bringing these guys, these amazing Bigfoots and Yetis into your business, and they're getting used to your coffee at the office. Perhaps give them a beer. You never know what'll happen. And cool. The other thing is allowing your people to interact with other developers in your organization and outside of your organization. That's something that we find a lot of people, we're still in this old world where I'm coding the stuff and it has to be super secure because I am breaking boundaries. Nobody is ever going to know how amazing this code is, but actually your code isn't that amazing. Our code generally is just fairly mundane. But if you get your people to work with other people, they start thinking together, then it starts to get amazing. So join our hackathons. We do hackathons hopefully every quarter, but Luigi and the budget is difficult, so we're not doing every quarter, but there's one actually coming up soon. But we try and do as much as possible in terms of bringing guys together and actually coding together. That's certainly something that's important. Your key developers, though, they're the big fish in your little small pond. Give them the opportunity to get out into the big world. The only way for you to know if you're really good enough is to go and play with the big boys, with the best people in the world. If Lionel Messi stayed in school, he would have been the best player in his primary school first team. He would have been the best player in his high school first team. He would have been the best player in his university team, and then he would have become an accountant. However, he then said, oh, I'm the best in the primary school. Let me go and find some level that's higher than my current level and go and play with those guys. And when I was the best at that level, then go find a higher level. So constantly finding a higher level is where you need to go. Now, yes, you can go to all the industry conferences, but perhaps you don't have tons of budget. The easiest option is actually just join the Apache Software Foundation. So the Apache Software Foundation, we all know the Apache web server, but the Apache Software Foundation has thousands of other projects and things that they're doing, and almost every single piece of enterprise code that's running in the world today uses components from this foundation. So join the Apache Software Foundation, even if you are not a hardcore coder. In fact, they're generally looking for people who aren't coders because they've got quite a few coders already. They want somebody who can help them write documentation, help them write test cases, etc. So join them. All you need is an internet connection and perhaps a little bit of time. So that's something I would almost suggest for everybody. Okay, but getting back to our boxes. We like the knight. This is not a white horse, but it is a knight that's going to come and rescue us. So look, I mean, it's an EOH technology conference, so we're talking about all these buzzwords and stuff. So this is stuff we do day in, day out. We apply these technologies where we go, but we only have time for one, and Luigi only has a couple of hands left. So we're not going to demo all of this. We're gonna do a specific thing. We're going to talk about DevOps really and continuous integration and stuff. So we're going to demo a little bit of that. Everybody just do like this. Okay, cool. Let's hope for the best. Okay, but we're going to talk a little bit about these pipelines of ours. So we know the new kind of pipeline. Everybody's talking about pipeline these days. Pipeline as code is, of course, the latest buzzword. But all that we're really talking about is we want to have a sequence of reliable steps that I can take from where somebody is writing code until it is actually deployed on a production server. That's where I was speaking about earlier. The thing that goes wrong with a lot of production deployments in our country is somebody is fixing something and building and testing in one environment on his laptop, more frequent than you would think, testing over there. Then when they need to deploy, there's just these couple of things that you need to do. There's just this INI file here that I need to change. There's a property file. I just need to uncomment that thing, and then I need to export the EAR. And then one day you're a little bit tired, you forget one of those things, you deploy it onto production, and the world comes to an end. I mean, we all know it happens. We've got some banks every now and then, and then we're wondering what exactly happened there. That is what's happening. When you don't automate that process from where somebody writes code to where it is actually deployed onto the production environment. That is where failures happen in our industry. All right, so just what this whole DevOps world is, and we're really mostly focusing on continuous integration here, but the idea is that you start off with this new innovative business plan, you then break that into or you convert that into a backlog of stories, features that you want to actually add into your organization. Then you break that backlog into sprints and you code through those sprints. That gets integrated and tested as part of this pipeline, gets released automatically, versioned, and deployed onto your production environment. And then, of course, you can operate the environment from there as well. So that's kind of the rough message that you would see on every DevOps white paper that you're reading today. That is true, and I'm not dissing that at all, but we want to be a little bit more practical. So how we try and visualize our approach to DevOps is like this. Fewer blocks, slightly fewer blocks, thinner lines though. So this is our approach. The key things to take note of here is that source control is the middle of everything. Source control is Git. If you're using anything other than Git, then you need to change. Sorry, quite opinionated, but that's the way it is. Everything runs on source control. Everybody works on the source control environment. And the key other thing that you'll see here is we've got our test developer, we've got our analyst, and we've got our developer. They're all working against our source control repository. And that's a key thing that we, and not just in South Africa, that we as an industry have done wrong for ages and ages. You have your BAs working in Microsoft Word, probably having a Visio diagram or something, and then they're copying and pasting the Visio image into the Word document, and nobody ever reads that document. Because truly, let's be honest, nobody actually cares. I feel for those people. I am actually one of those people. It's painful, and I cry often at night. That is an analyst, but the analysts shouldn't be separate. They should be part of the development process. So get your analyst to document their stuff, their architectures, their diagrams, etc. Do it on the code repository. That not only ensures that their documentation is part of the versioning structure of your code, but it also ensures that every now and then they don't know how to run git commit. It forces them to walk to the developer and to ask him, and just now the developer starts talking to people, and then when people start talking to each other, they build relationships and magic stuff happens. The same for testers. You don't want your testers to sit in another building because you don't want them to be contaminated by the development environment. You want the testers also in that very same source control repository, sitting just across the corridor from your developers. That way, when your testers write their code in the source code repository, that code is testing the stuff that you're deploying right now. And then, of course, that's what we get with continuous integration. Now, every single time a developer pushes code into source control, then you get this new red block of ours. There's a lot happening in there, but that's our building and provisioning, testing and deploying pipeline. So every time somebody commits code, these steps are executed every single time. So every time somebody commits code, we deploy it to our QA environment automatically. We test it in our QA environment automatically. We generate our documentation. We publish our documentation onto a dashboard so that everybody in the project has access to everything all the time. This brings teams together, and of course, then you would deploy it on your runtime platform, which generally is OpenShift these days, but I mean, you may be running on some TIN or VMware environment, etc. And of course, operations is where you're monitoring those environments. So most of the runtime platforms these days are quite well instrumented with the various monitoring solutions that actually allow you to monitor whether this thing works well. So what we're going to do now is we are going to do a demo of that exact thing. So let's see how it goes. We're gonna run some continuous integration. Are you gonna grab there?
There we go.
Cool. Let's pull this guy out. And then, let's see what happens. You saw earlier, I can guarantee you that earlier when we tested the thing, the drone went way higher, but I think the aircon actually pushed down on it. I think that's what actually happened. All right, let me plug this in.
Connect there.
Oh no, sorry, I am on HDMI, hey? There we go. See if you guys can see anything there. Yeah. It's an exciting demo, hey? Check it out. All right. Let me just switch this on. There we go. Our stuff is there. Cool. And then I just want to double check my network connectivity. So I'm going to connect to that drone of ours over there. So then I think everything is set up. Okay, what did I show you guys just now? I showed you source control as the middle of everything. I showed you analysts, I showed you test developers, and I showed you developers, all working in the same single environment. Forget about the drone for 5 seconds. I'm going to show you some source code because, hey, that's way cooler. Hey? No, so let's talk about development. So this is some HTML development documentation that's generated. So it's obviously my demo documentation here. So this is the stuff that analysts like to do. They like to draw diagrams like this. They then like to describe the diagrams. We have requirements here. There's a use case diagram. There's some stuff written at the bottom. There's architectures here. We're using the 4+1 framework. This is the stuff that your analysts like to do. They like to do it in a Word document. But we want to change their worldview to generate or to document their code in effectively markdown syntax that allows to generate HTML or generate PDFs documentation from that. So that's the analyst type of world. How the analyst would go about changing the stuff. Let's pick this overview page. So we want to change something here. We want to add some comments just here, and underneath or above that lorem ipsum there. So I'm going to go into I've of course opened all these pages beforehand, hey, just to be fast. So I'm going to make a quick change there. Now I must say Greg is here. I'm going to say EOH #Devanything is here. Hold on. Cool. So there we go. We made some changes. This is the typical world that I'm certainly pushing on all our projects, that business analysts and just architects as well. This is where the architects do their documentation. And it's pretty simple if you understand markdown syntax. Now let's look about what a tester is interested in. Testers typically generate test reports for you. They tell you these are all the tests we ran. These are the tests that passed. I'm still busy with these tests. This is automated tests, manual tests, and of course they can give you a whole bunch of stuff. This is what testers are interested in. How we bring that into our source code repository, we use Cucumber as our test framework. And actually we're running Cucumber through Serenity. So we use Serenity as a tool to bring Cucumber reports together. So here's a scenario of a simple Cucumber test scenario. It says the scenario is login with valid username and password, given the user is on the login page. When the user supplies valid login credentials and selects login, then they should be successfully logged in and the home page should be displayed. So this is English. This is not like somebody can struggle. A test analyst is not going to struggle to understand what you're doing there. Of course, there's a little bit of magic in the background. I've got one specific test that I'm going to run here that actually checks that the documentation gets deployed. And then the last one is let's make a change here quickly. Login with a valid username and password by Greg or something. I don't know. Now it is already English, so messing it up is a little bit difficult. And then, of course, our code. This is what the developer would do. He likes writing. So this is Node.js that we're doing here. And I'm going to make a quick change here. This is hello from the Node.js drone. So I'm going to say hello, EOH Connect from the Node.js drone. Okay, cool. So that's the three type of people. They all now, granted I'm now just one guy and I'm doing it all at the same time. But the reality is these are the three role players who actually interact together. So they work in the same environment. They're all checking in and pushing their code at the same time. And they hopefully start to talk to each other as well. Okay, let me do the following. I am going to commit this stuff now. I'm going to go git add. Terminal is cool, hey? This is way better than PowerPoint. Git commit -m, demo changes today or something, I'm not sure. And then I'm going to go git push to my Git environment and to the master branch. Cool. Okay, so that should now be deployed onto my environment. This is where the developer or the analyst forgets about stuff. The rest is now supposed to happen automatically. And it does, in fact, happen automatically. I just need to super double check I am connected to our environment, and then there's one teeny tiny other thing I just want to double check because we don't want our, there we go. I think all should be fine then now. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to open our continuous integration environment. This is Jenkins. And this is the pipeline, the deployment pipeline, and I'm going to run this now. For the demo, I didn't make it automatically kick off. Normally, you would want it to automatically kick off the moment I clicked on push. So I'm going to now click on that, and is our drone on? Yes, there we go.
It's on.
Cool. So there we go. This is our continuous integration pipeline. It is now going, fetching the latest code. It's compiling our Node.js stuff. It's generating the documentation. Once it's done with that, it's going to prepare our staging environment. Then it's running our behavior-driven development tests. So our test here is to check that the documentation is working, that there is actually a getting started page. And once all of that runs, or once all of that passes, then it should, hopefully, get that drone to start flying. Hey, look at that. Check Luigi. See, that's how high we wanted it to go. Nice. Huh? So that's pretty cool.
Oh, Greg.
I didn't do anything. It's probably going to go again, but it's because of fun. No, apparently I did it. No, I actually didn't do it. Luigi, seriously. Come on, guys. Go like this again. That's exciting. The demo really always has that extra kick.
It has an extra kick. I did put a try-catch block.
There might actually be, eh? So now, in addition to obviously getting the drone to launch, which I think is super cool, but I mean, that's really just a gimmick for our purposes. It kind of shows you that represents our production servers, eh? So we've now actually deployed code onto our production servers, and it's running. We ensure that it is testing, etc. But we didn't just do that. We actually updated our documentation as well. So if I go to our overview document, I should refresh here, and there we go. EOH hashtag Devanything is here, wahaha. And if we go to our Serenity test, I'm pretty certain, let me just refresh from here. I think we added something by Greg here in our test case. So it actually updated all of our tests just from that git push. And this particular thing that we're doing with Cucumber and Serenity is quite cool. Notice here's our test cases, given the user is on the developer homepage. And we actually even, I mean, you guys didn't see this, it all happened automatically. We even took screenshots of each step in our test case. So not only did you test and you said the test passed, but you actually confirmed that it is working correctly, and you can actually report on that. I think I am done, it seems. Guys, so that was fun and games. We're not going to do the coding in production. Oh, but perhaps it's better that we don't do code in production now.
I've been given a signal to quickly wrap up. Okay. All right. All right, guys. So, I mean, there's a million tools in this space, and there's a million tools in the whole delivery pipeline, and we used a whole bunch of these today to make it work. The point is, if you expose your developers and give them the free time to just play and geek out and do their thing, they will learn these things, and it's not so intimidating as it is. People might talk as pipeline as code, but it's just a sequence of steps. It's just something very, scary. Oh, I do pipeline. Oh, well, how's your pipeline? How's my pipeline? And the point is, it's really simple. Most of these terminologies, they come up with very funky names today to attract your interest and make you sound super important, but they're actually just simple principles. And Greg's demo there just went through that simple pipeline. One was testing, one was doing this, one was checking that, and it's really simple. So it shouldn't be too confusing for anybody. Just to get to a DevOps, what you can do is you can take a safe option, and for each one of these blocks, you can go and buy a product from IBM or from other big brands and plug it in there. But just remember, that product was designed 5 years ago. So, just stay relevant. But what you could do as a dev option 2 is you can go download for free, from lots of open source places and download all these things here. So on this page here, I mean, I think Greg used probably like 70% of them just in this simple demo. We didn't use all of them. Obviously, we don't have time, and we don't want to, we didn't have time to use all of them. But there's a ton of things that you could do over here. So just to wrap it up, our session here, I just want to round up and don't kid yourself that you're innovating by buying boxes. Don't have a Kodak moment where you're always flogging the same business model and everything. You need to diversify and look differently at life. The South African dev community, we need to every single person, every single business needs to get behind development, because the fourth industrial revolution is all about technology. I mean, in Singapore and Philippines, there are third graders, and I think they may be 7, 8 years old. These kids are learning how to program today. They can code HTML pages better than some of our developers, and they're learning how to code robots. And what's even more surprising is they are being taught by robots how to learn maths and English and science and so forth. So if you see where they are and where we are, we need to get to that stage pretty soon. So, and disruption, everybody's talking about digital disruption. How do you get digital disruption? It first starts with a bit of fun, a lot of innovation, a bit of pain, and then that innovation leads you to another idea of innovation, and then you get disruption. You can't just think of a disruptive thought. It's very rare that you'll just get to disruption immediately. You need to play with a lot of things, integrate a lot of things, and see, hey, what does this mean? And how does that mean? So, and I hope, just what you guys have seen here is in a drone. If none of you have thought today, shucks, how can I integrate that drone with my ERP system, with my ordering system, with my payment system? And how can we use it, We can add robotics onto it, we can add a gun onto it, we can add machine learning, we can add facial recognition, and you can download all of these things for free, these facial recognition APIs for free on open source. And yeah, so I mean, and then I just want to just kind of end up is, the dev anything approach. The dev anything approach is all about, don't be so, your business it's made good money, it's done its good thing over the years doing this one approach, but you need to look at different approaches. And how you're going to open your mind to looking at different approaches that's through innovation. And that's through linking code and different technologies, regardless of vendor, getting under the covers and see what you can do. That drone, it couldn't do a backflip if we got it out the box. That controller can't do a backflip. We coded that, and we controlled every single engine and disabled the gyros so it could turn and not correct itself and stuff. And things happened, but that's life, and that's how we as South Africa are going to get to the next level of innovation and be competitive in the fourth industrial revolution. I just want to say one thing about this process here. The great advantage of this process is of a good DevOps process is that you can make bad developers or good developers great. You can make decent test developers seem amazing. You can make analysts, you can just bootstrap them to the next level, because if they're in a focused a pipeline, I'm not to use a fancy word, pipeline, right? If they're in a fancy pipeline and it's strict and it's got all these structures in, then your developer is not wasting his energy on thinking about, how am I going to deploy, how am I going to do that? That all happened magically. I don't know how Greg did it on his laptop. He did it and just deployed everything and kicked off the drone. And just imagine that's your developer coding a new feature, clicking deploy, and it's in production at 2 o'clock in the morning magically, because it's automated, not because you had to sit there and manually deploy it or manually test it, because it's all automatically done. And that's the important thing, is these processes make average better, make your average skills better. So, and the most important thing about Dev Anything is just about having fun, exploring new technologies. So I just want to wrap up there, and I want to say thank you, guys. Thank you for being an audience, and thank you for your participation. Greg, thank you so much.
Cool.
Yeah, I suppose we have to go to the last slide. It says thank you, and a big thank you, guys. Thank you for attending, and I hope you enjoyed it, and we're available to talk if you need. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg and Luigi. So, yeah, that was a lot of fun. I promised fun, and I promised our drones aren't weaponized. So obviously there was some truth and some lies in everything that I said. Did you notice the stickers on their laptops? It seems that developers needs a lot of coffee and stickers on their laptops. It just doesn't work without it. So we need 5 minutes just to change speakers, mic up the new speakers. Please stand up, grab a water at the back. Don't leave the room. The morning session was all about scaring you and the doom and gloom of AI. And we want to be real. We want to be practical. So if you want to see the real story and the real practical implications of it, please stay and join us in 5 minutes. Hear the Dev Anything, guys, which means you might be seeing a lot of similar things that's in other sessions, but because we're the Devanything team, it's all from the world of software development. And it's focusing on the life of software developers and how to embed these technologies in the thinking of an agile squad on a daily basis. So our next session is to share with you this new reality, how to make it real. As William Gibson, the author that coined the phrase cyberspace, said in The Economist in 2003, the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. So we're hoping that we'll inspire you to start grabbing your slice of the future and to radically demand that the radical redistribution of the future so that you can get your share. And be assured that software developers will be key in that process to democratize the future. So Denzel and Leonardo will take us on this next step. Denzel is the head of technology at our Microsoft Software Development and Integration unit in EOH. And Leonardo is the treasury back office manager at our customer Bidvest Bank. So please take us away. Thanks.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm going to attempt to kick off with a demo. So I just hope it's not contagious. Let's see how this goes. Hello, Alpha.
Hello, sir.
How are you?
I am good, thank you.
So, who are you?
My name is Alpha, and I am here to assist you.
Really? How are you going to assist me?
Well, for starters, I am here to make you look good.
And don't you think I can do that by myself?
Of course you can. But because you cannot tell, I am being sarcastic.
Why don't you tell everyone what the presentation is going to be about?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Well, Denzel, Leonardo, and I are going to talk about artificial intelligence and its impact on software development.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Do not mess it up.
No pressure, right? Okay. Okay, artificial intelligence. Now, just to put your minds at ease, you did not accidentally teleport into the AI session. So this session is about how the world of software development can and will change through the potential of artificial intelligence. And you guys, the people, the influencers and decision makers around software development, you need to ensure that AI is part of your thinking when designing and implementing your software solutions. Because very few technologies have the transformative potential to reshape the way we live, move, and work. Electricity and the internet were two technologies that completely changed people's lives in the 20th century. And artificial intelligence is the 21st century equivalent of electricity and the internet. Now, what is AI? It's an information system that is inspired by a biological system designed to give computers the human-like abilities of hearing, seeing, reasoning, and learning. Now, there are a few technologies that are actually driving artificial intelligence, and these are subset technologies of AI, and think of AI as being the broader concept. Now, you may not realize, but you are actually interacting with these technologies frequently, right? For example, the predictive texting on your messaging applications like WhatsApp and the messages on your phone. This uses machine learning to predict or to suggest the next most appropriate word. Now, how often do we text? Every day, every hour, actually every minute, right? I mean, we text often. So I just hope that you guys are not actually texting right now. Greg? He's probably sending a text. He told me not to text right now. So Facebook uses computer vision, for example, to scan through the images that you actually upload to them. And they will detect your friends that are present in those images and automatically tag them on upcoming posts. Cortana and Siri actually uses a combination of machine learning, natural language processing, as well as deep learning to imitate a more human experience. Now, these technologies have already become part of our everyday life, right? And machine learning, I believe, is one of the major players that is driving artificial intelligence. And my colleagues in the next presentation, Warren and Antoine, will be covering machine learning in greater detail. Now, traditionally, if you wanted to teach the computer how to do something new, you'd have to program it, right? And programming, for those of you who have not done it before, requires you laying down in excruciating detail every step you wanted the computer to do to achieve a particular goal. Now, for example, let's take the game tic-tac-toe, or X and O's, as some of you might know it. Now, if you wanted to teach the computer how to play X and O's, you'd first have to understand how the game works yourself and understand the rules of the game. I mean, that's a good place to start, right? Then you'd go about coding all of the logic and all of the algorithms in order to teach the computer how to play the game. Now, for those developers, how many developers do we have in here? By show of hands. So, yes, for those developers out there, that means a lot of if-then-else statements, right? Or case statements. However, with machine learning, you would feed the computer data of past games and let the computer come up with its own code and its own algorithms and learn from the data of these past games in order to take the required steps in order to win the game. Now, there have been a lot of commercial success around machine learning and artificial intelligence. Companies like Amazon and Netflix are using the power of machine learning to suggest what movies you may want to rent, as well as products that you may want to buy. Other companies like LinkedIn and Facebook are using the power of machine learning to suggest who your friends might be. Now, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but you're sitting in front of your computer and you maybe have LinkedIn, for example, that's open. And all of a sudden, a notification pops up asking you, do you know this person? And you turn to the right, and that's the exact same person sitting right next to you. And then you kind of like look around and ask yourself, who's watching me, right? How do they know? And it comes across a bit creepy. But this is the power of machine learning, is that these algorithms have actually learned from the data rather than being programmed by hand. Now, here's the dilemma. Because this process is a black box, I mean, we really have no idea how the machine will come to its decision and how the machine will make its decision. Now, mathematically and statistically, this might be the correct decision. But what about morally and ethically? Now, I want you to picture yourself in a driverless car. And the year is, or autonomous car. And the year is 2030. And you're driving down this road. And suddenly, sorry, am I blocking you guys? Can you see that? And suddenly, the car experiences a mechanical failure and is unable to stop. Now, the car can continue down this path and crash into those bunch of pedestrians, killing them instantly. Alternatively, the car can swerve to the right and killing the bystander, but saving the life of those 3 pedestrians. Now, what should the car do? And who should decide? Alternatively, a third option is the car can swerve to the left and crash into a tree, killing yourself, the passenger. Again, what should the car do? And who should decide? Now, I'm curious about the answer to this question. And I'm curious to know what you guys think the answer to this question should be. And maybe share your opinion on what you think the car should do. So what I'm going to do is randomly ask 3 people You can see everybody puts their heads down, right? But just to share their opinion on what they think the car should do. Now, you don't have to say why you think that, and nobody's going to judge you, right? It's a safe space. We're in a circle of trust. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw this ball into the audience, and it's a hard ball, so please catch it, and don't let it hit the guy next to you. And then if you catch the ball, just answer on why do you think, or what should the car do? And that's it. If you want to explain why you think the car should do it, go ahead. And then if that person can throw it to the next person, and throw it to the third person, and let's just get 3 answers on what you think the car should do. Okay, here we go. Nice. Peter, can we maybe get a mic? So Peter is my boss, and this is the only time that I can get him to tell him what to do.
Hello, hello. I think they should go for the tree. I mean, the car has airbags in it, so you might survive.
Okay, very noble of you.
Thanks.
Okay, I'm throwing you the mic against the head now. Thanks, Denzel, for making me run.
Yeah, you're doing it very slowly as well.
I share the previous guy's testimony around going for the tree, except I think it should be the driver's choice, not the car's choice.
Good.
Nobody's choosing the dog.
Yeah, I wonder how many people will actually really do that. But I'll take your word on it. Yeah, let's go for one more person.
It hit you, you're now forced.
So I would probably also say the tree. But that's probably just masochism on my part.
Okay, so thanks for that. So let me share my opinion on what I would do. So I as well, like you guys, will do the heroic thing and crash into the tree and kill myself, because that's the type of person that I am, right? The heroic type, like you guys. However, if my son and my wife were in the car, then all I can say is that I feel sorry for that bystander standing on the side of the road. And that's the honest truth. Okay, so enough with the doom and gloom, right? So let's move on. I think it's still early in the day to start thinking about life and death scenarios. So let's move on. What is the impact of AI on software development? Now, the days of asking your computer, simply asking your computer to create a program and you kind of take a back seat is still far off, right? Machines are not yet matured enough to create code and produce ready-to-use software all by themselves just as yet. And I think this is one thing that should give developers some faith in their jobs. Because this industry is not going to run out of the need for tech-savvy developers who are able to think outside the box. Artificial intelligence technology is here to assist us developers in creating better software. Software that is safer than being created under traditional environments. Now, there is going to be a shift in the nature of software development going forward. I will say this, that they have been in the software development community, have expressed some concerns around AI taking over their jobs, as more and more of these tasks are being handed over or shifted over to the machines going forward. Now, if you view your job, and there's a lot of developers here, if you view your job as just writing code, then the truth is you're in a position to get replaced. And that's the truth. However, if you see your job as delivering value to business and society, then I believe that you guys are going to be empowered by the leverage of what artificial intelligence and machine learning delivers. Now, AI is also going to require developers to not only learn a new skill, but also to develop a new mindset. Now, establishing that mindset, that's where I believe the real challenge is going to lie. Because traditional developers typically think in a linear, algorithmic way. And that is not always what is required when developing artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms. AI is also going to require developers to have a much more deeper understanding of business and what are the overall objectives are. Because when AI is implemented into software, there is a shift from the relatively simple input-output equations to building software that can automatically respond to multiple scenarios and situations and can provide a range of responses. The truth is that you're going to come across more and more and more business problems that are going to be virtually impossible to solve using traditional linear algorithmic programming. Understanding AI is not optional anymore, right? It is a requirement. However, the good news is that it's becoming much more easier for developers to start integrating AI technologies into their code. For example, at Build 2017, Microsoft announced the deployment of 29 new cognitive services. Now, some examples of these cognitive services are like your Face API, which can automatically detect faces in images. It can also tell you the emotion of those faces. So it can tell you if you're scared, if you're happy, if you are surprised, if you're sad. Then there's the Speech API that can convert text to speech and vice versa. Can also do voice recognition. Then there's also the Language app, for example, that can process natural language and can also detect sentiment and intent from sentences. So these AI services are going to enable developers or allow developers to integrate these artificial intelligence technologies into code with just a few lines of code. So artificial intelligence technology are here to assist us developers to create or to solve problems and create solutions that were previously impossible. So creating solutions that were previously impossible. And that is exactly what we're trying to accomplish at Bidvest Bank with their global payments online application. So I'm going to now hand you over to Leonardo, and he's the product owner of Global Payments Online and Internet Banking at Bidvest Bank. And he's going to explain more about GPO, and he's also going to explain how we used AI to solve some of our issues. Okay, Leo.
Thanks, Denzel. Good afternoon, everybody. Leonardo from Bidvest Bank. I'm going to give you a quick overview of our payments platform, essentially, which we are going to demo now as well, shortly after. And now we implemented AI in this process. For businesses with importing, exporting, and other international payment requirements, Global Payments Online allows business customers to make and receive foreign payments online. With the GPO platform, our customers have instant access to trader Forex and have ability to get market rates almost instantaneously. Furthermore, GPO enables the customer to manage all the beneficiary data, documentation, and exchange control requirements online, ensuring a seamless payment process. So, essentially, we implemented the new platform, and with everything that's new, there's problems that come about on it. And the one thing that we have found was that our legacy users, if I can just say it like that, was a bit hesitant to change. And we found that our online support had continuously receiving same questions over and over on a daily basis. So what we have, what inherently happened after that is we had to increase our staff, and that increased cost inherently. That problem asked for a solution at the end of the day. That led us to investigate AI and chatbots. We needed the chatbot to respond to all queries or any questions, frequently asked questions from our clients. Basically, one AI, a person as such, that can respond at any time of day, should the client need it. So we rolled out our chatbot called Brian. Let me introduce you to Brian.
Thanks.
I never click my buttons.
Thanks, Leo. Okay, so we're going to attempt to do another live demo. So it's either that we're very brave and confident or very stupid. We'll soon find out. Okay, so let me just close my presentation down. Okay, so let's just go into our live demo. Now, before I get into the chatbot, when we implemented the chatbot, Brian, we wanted to ensure that our users, or that Brian, our chatbot, was accessible from each and every page. So that means that if a user was struggling with a function or was struggling on a page and didn't know how to continue, he can simply click on Chat Assist, and Brian would automatically pop up. And he could automatically or already start typing. So let's go.
Hi, I am Brian from Bidvest Bank and I am here to assist you.
Okay. A user would typically type something like, and if he was on the payment page, for example, he would type something like this. How do I make payment?
Navigate to Payments, then click on Create Payment, then select the account you want to pay from.
Okay, now if you look at the UI, you would see that it's very similar to your messaging app. I mean, it has speech bubbles. It looks very similar to messages on your iOS or WhatsApp. And we did this intentionally to make sure that it comes across intuitive to the user and it feels very, very familiar to the user. Now, I just want to briefly chat to the mechanics behind Brian, since there's a lot of developers out here, and talk about the technology behind what we use and what's powering Brian. So we use the Microsoft bot framework on Azure. And what this framework does, or enables us to do, is, or it gives us access to an integrated development environment where we can build, test, and deploy all our intelligent bots all from one place. Now, these bots can also connect to the cognitive services that I was talking to you about, and that kind of gives your bot superpowers of hearing, seeing, and able to interpret content. We also connected our bot to Microsoft's Q&A framework. And this, in a nutshell, is a framework where you can feed your bot frequently asked questions. And if a user types in a question and it appears in that frequently asked questions, the bot goes through that, looks at the pair, and looks at the answer, and responds with an appropriate answer. So I quickly want to just show you how easy it is to deploy a new question and answer from the frequently asked questions template bot. So I'm logged in here, and this is my knowledge base of questions and answers. And I'm going to quickly add one in. And I'm going to say, I love EOH Connect, because that's what we said we must say. It's not really a question, but let's go with it. And I'm going to add me too. Okay, so I'm going to save and retrain this bot, because there's a machine learning that's behind it that is training it to look at the frequently asked questions and provide the appropriate answer. So I can quickly test from here, just to make sure that it works correctly. So I'm still in the IDE. I love EOH Connect. And there it goes. So it provides me the answer. Now, what I can do from here is provide multiple alternative phrasing to the question. Now, the more phrasing and the more permutations that you give, the better it is that the responses of the bot will be. So I can say here as well, because everybody phrases questions differently, right? So I can say, we also love EOH Connect. So if I put in both I love EOH Connect and we also love EOH Connect, I'm going to get the same response. Now, all I need to do is hit that big publish button and publish. Hang tight, this should only take a minute. Perfect. I go back to my bot and I say, I love EOH Connect.
Me too.
Okay, perfect. So it's as simple as that to publish another question and answer for your bot. Okay, over to you, Leo.
We didn't stop there. We wanted to give our application a little bit more of a human side. We wanted our users to interact with the application in a more natural way. So we introduced natural language processing to the process as well.
Okay, so we wanted to ensure that when our users interact with our AI chatbot, it's as similar as them interacting with a real-life person over the telephone, right? So we added some elements of natural language processing, which basically has voice recognition, can also convert my text to speech and my speech to text. So let me just show you that works. How do I make a payment?
Navigate to Payments, then click on Create Payment, then select the account you want to pay from.
Okay, so that is connected to the cognitive services that I spoke about, which is basically the speech recognition that converts my speech to text and my text to speech and Brian's text to speech. Sorry, Leo.
Okay. Again, we didn't stop there. We wanted to push the boundaries of AI contextual understanding. If you wanted to request a quote, you would need to fill in this specific page, which Denzel will go on to now. It's fairly easy. It's one of the most frequent used pages in our application at this point in time. And we asked ourselves, how can we get AI to make this easier for the client?
Okay, so this is a core functionality of Global Payments Online, is that everything that you do, you need to start off by acquiring a quote for US dollars or euros, for example. And you basically will fill in your payment currency, settlement currency, and click Add, and that goes over to the trading room, and then you get a quote back for US dollars, for example. Now, that form is quite simple. But to staying and to continue the vision of how do we make this more natural and more conversational? And then we did this. So before I get into that, is what if a user wants to say something like, pay $250 US to Leonardo, for example? Now that is outside the frequently asked question template. I mean, there could be millions of permutations to that. A user could pay $300 US, 500 Canadian dollars, or 600 Zimbabwean dollars if they wanted to. I don't know why, but. So what we did was introduce Microsoft Lewis, which is Language Understanding Intelligence Service. And what this does is that it can pull out intent from what you're trying to say. So I'm going to do that now. Buy $250 US and settle with rands.
Requesting your quote.
So it's going to fill in my form automatically. It adds it to the basket. You can't really see it. And it's going to send that off to the trading room. And there I get my quote back with $250 US. And then it shows me my rand equivalent. Now, just to show you that this is not hard-coded, and I'm not pulling the wool over your eyes, I'm going to do that again. And let's ask somebody for a random amount, a rounded up number. Anyone? I don't think we have $1 million in our account as yet. Okay, so let's look at 425. 425. Pay for. Let's do that again.
No good match found in the KB.
Buy $450 US and settle with rands.
Requesting your quote.
Okay, there we go, $450 US, and I have 30 seconds to approve my quote. Now, going forward, this is how we believe that people are going to start interacting with applications in a more natural, in a more human, and in a more conversational manner. Because, I mean, let's face it, right? Typing on a keyboard is just so retro. Thank you.
Very cool. Thanks, Denzel, Leo. Well done on I think, being thought leaders in how to improve a customer experience using AI. Quite cool. And this, I'm sure this will evolve even further. But what if I'm someone that's not in the customer channel, that's in production? So how will this Devanything impact on my world? And our next session is there to answer that question for you. We talk about this big data and fast data and machine learning, and you hear about it a lot, but how practical is that for you currently in your organization? And Warren and Antoine, Warren Barrett is the business unit head for our Shandon Business Solutions team at EOH. And they specialize in custom software development solutions using machine learning. And Antoine Snyman is from our customer. He's an industrial engineer, and he's a senior manager for MES and MRM at our customer Lonman. So they'll share how they made data talk and tell a story. Thanks, Warren. Thanks, Antoine.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, everybody. I know we're in the stretch between you and lunch, so we're not going to labor it, but I've asked Anton to come. Let's just have a conversation around what we were able to get up to. And I think also just to also expose not only the technology that you're able to achieve, but how you got there. Because I think a lot of the AI space and the machine learning space has this mysticism. They demo these items, they show you a nice, clever picture, you find the picture and you think, well, how do I use this in my business? So this is where we basically embarked on a specific problem, and we're going to show you how we got there. But Anton, I think start off just a little bit of history of what work we have done with you. If you can cover that for us.
Sure. So, good morning, afternoon, wherever. So, my name is Antoine Snyman. As mentioned, I'm from Lonman. You probably have heard of us. We're in the metropolis of Marikana, is our headquarters. Fantastic place. So, during the times that we've been there, I'm in a department that we're actually looking at projects that will add value to the business, to what we're doing. So the question when we start with a project is, how much more platinum will come out of the mine when we do this? So not just how much faster can I send the email, but how much more platinum can we do? So back in the days, we've developed a system called OEE to look at our plants to see how effective it was running and what you can do and what you can learn from it to run it more effectively. One of the issues that we have is to measure the quality of the products, of the platinum that we put in there. Am I echoing? Anyway, so what we did is, normally you have a process going through, you add, and I'll explain it in a while, and you add a lot of things to it, and then you see this is the quality that I have, or some of the slurry that comes out, you test it, and 4 days later you know what you're doing. And then we realized, but maybe there's some way in it. Maybe you can beforehand predict and say, if I do this and this and this, I will have a better product out of it. So I can preempt what's going on there. So we designed this OEE, overall equipment effectiveness, and we had to code it, and we had to implement this solution. And that's actually where we started getting into it with Warren and Aubrey. They supplied us with some of the developers, some quite sharp people. And one of the things we've coded it, or one single guy coded it in 30 days. And it was implemented, it was working with a lot of maths behind it. Okay. So that's that part of it. I think if you can give me the next one.
I think we also then progressed on, we spoke about the mobile app opportunity as well. And I think what that ends up happening is you've got data there. So you basically got the data, it's been gathered in the systems, being used to actually manage systems within Lonman, if I'm correct.
That's right.
And then the other side of it is you've now got this mobile app with information. But what is it? Is it just a log that you're looking at? Is it keeping track? What can people do with that information that actually changes their behavior?
The idea behind the mobile app was to say, obviously you can run in the morning, you grab your phone and say, this is what happened yesterday, which is brilliant and a bit 2099 something on that. We wanted to say, how can we leverage off of this mobile app to see what's going forward? Where are we going with this? So in the morning, I can run in there, I can take out my app and see, this is what I did yesterday, this is the state of my process right now, but what is the suggestion for today? Because you get a lot of people running in there, and I'll show you some of the knee-jerk reactions that we have in a while. But
okay, I think take us through the process, maybe just give people a little bit of context.
All right, let's for the process. So what you do, we normally, at a mine, we've got shafts, we blast and we take out stuff out of the ground. Then we move it to a concentrator, which is where the ore storage, and then the exciting things start. We have milling and classification, which I'll explain now, and thereafter we have a flotation process. After that, we dispatch it to the downstream process. Now, if we look at the process on that, the milling process is we've got a big mill. It's about half the size of this room. You chuck all the ore in there, all the ground and the rocks, and you chuck a lot of steel balls in there. Works like a washing machine, and it breaks the stuff. So what goes into it is about this size, and what comes out of it at the bottom is 0.12 millimeters in diameter. So we do break stuff quite brilliantly. Then we send it into a flotation process, which is like a bathtub, and you add in there, you put all the stuff in there. It's a mud, it's a slurry. You've got an agitator fan in it, and you push some air through it, and some reagents, such as copper sulfate, such as xanthate, depressants, all of that. So what happens then, with all of the bubbles, your platinum, and that's what you can see on the right-hand side, the platinum, palladium, all of those stick to the bubble, and they float over the process. And all the waste, stuff like normal ground, goes down, and you underfloat it, and take it to the next process. So that is how that process works. Now, imagine the following. Imagine if you, and I have to use the shower example at risk again, it happens now that when they're in the shower, they think of me, which is a very unsettling thought. So
we're qualified.
So when you're in the shower in the morning, and you stand there and you see the waters are coming out and it's too hot, you can do one or two things. You can either close the hot water tap a bit, or you can open the cold water tap some more, and that'll change the temperature. But that's not the only thing. Let's say you open the cold water tap a little bit more. The cold water tap will have an effect on, firstly, the temperature that's coming out. Secondly, on the amount of flow that's coming out. Thirdly, on the supply of water to the hot water tap, and the amount of water available to you. So by changing one little tap, you've got 4 or 5 different interactions that's coming for there. In a concentrator process, we've got 54 of those taps that you can turn around, that you can open or close or do whatever. So in a shower every morning, and you'll probably know this, you open it a bit and you close it a bit, and you open it a bit and you close it a bit, and you go to the other one. How would you work with 52? The human mind can't comprehend that. So that's what led us to this. Back to the process, if we look at what's coming in, what's coming in is 4.5 grams in a ton on average. So when we take something out of the ground, we've got roughly 4.5 grams of platinum in every ton that we take out. When we send it off to the downstream process, we've got roughly 280 grams in every ton that we send off to the downstream process, which means we recover about 87% of the metals or of the precious stuff that's in there. Our mass pull is 1.5%, meaning 1.5% of whatever comes into the concentrator in this process goes down to the next process. If we increased our recovery with 1%, only 1%, we add another 195 million rand per year to our bottom line by doing 1%. And as mentioned, we've got 52 levers to pull to increase or decrease 1% on that. So what we have done, we decided, we teamed up with Warren and them through a long story how we approach each other, but whatever. So we decided we're going to send them a bunch of data. So we sent them 1.15 gigabytes worth of data. It was 1,021 files. We had 730 data points per data observations per data point. Roughly speaking, if we had a temperature measure on there, we have 730 of them that we sent through to Warren and them. I wrote there specifically complete novices. So we sent it to complete novices who had absolutely no idea, and the briefing that you guys had was no longer than what I've just given you in terms of the process. And we told them, stay the novices in terms of the process, do your math, and come back to us and allow the data to tell us stories. The data should tell us what's happening within our plants without you having context on that. It's a bit of a challenge there. And the one question that we asked them was, with everything that you see on here, determine which dynamic plant conditions will yield a higher quality or a higher recovery. So tell me what to do with these 52 taps so that I can have a better quality at the end and raise 195 million rand.
I think this is an important element because I like the quotation that Einstein said years back, and I know everybody likes to quote it, but when you're dealing with these kind of problems, the most profound element is this. He said, if I had an hour and I had the option to try and solve a particular problem, he said, I'd spend 55 minutes deciding what the problem was and 5 minutes solving it. And that was key with this, because you're in a flood of a lot of data, there's lots of things you're coming through, and we literally did embrace the process with very little to no understanding. I was trained in chemistry, I never ever used it, I did IT at the same time, but this flotation technique, just to give you an idea, was developed in the late 90s, which totally missed my chemistry career. But the point is that there's a complexity, there's a physics involved, there's profoundly complex elements to this. But we had to take that data and try and understand it. Is there something that it's revealing to us that goes beyond the norm? And I think it ultimately comes down to this key point that says how, in finding that problem, was the bit we grappled with. If we could find that thing that we were trying to predict, which was the recovery percentage, could we find methods in the current data? And I think there's an important element to mention, just the context of the environment at Lonmin. We had the fortunate opportunity after we did the exercise to go and spend one of the mornings with the team there and with the metallurgist team, and they get together. They have almost like a stand-up, for those that are in the dev space, like a stand-up meeting that lasts for a good 2-3 hours.
Yes.
And they basically query and assess as engineers. There's PhD participants in that, so it gives you the level of intellect that's happening in the room, and it's quite intimidating. And they will challenge and they will thrash out what the current operations are, what they're currently working on, what they're going to do. So there's lots of thought happening in that business. It's not just the run-of-the-mill, we're hitting a button every day. They're thinking about it, they're changing it, they're refining their process constantly. And we basically took this data and we said, okay, we think we found some stuff. Okay.
So they presented back to us some of the things, or some of the key findings. They firstly had to determine what is significant in there. Because again, you have 52 taps, but not all of them will directly have an influence on it. So firstly, which are the significant ones? And then in combination with each other, if you use 2 at a time, the combination or the interacting effect, what will that have on the system? So the first one that you have.
Maybe just to chat to that, what we discovered was there's a reality of dealing with the complexity, and you can try and construct models, but we had to turn it around back to our original thought that said, what can we do to in the hands of those people getting that mobile app, what could we give them? So the prediction becomes important, but ultimately it also is the fact, well, how do they know that the value shouldn't be 3.25 of this one particular chemical, or it shouldn't be a completely different number? And they try and have to dial this in. So we came up with the concepts of levers. We're saying either leave it as it is, or add more, or take out. And that's really what you'll see in the 3 divisions there. So that's simplifying the action for us as human beings. Even though it's complex, scale it back down to a key decision. Because if you're sitting there in that dial, you've got to make a choice. Add more, leave it as it is, or take away. And that's really how we've mapped it back down. And those are the engineers in the room might question and shake your head, which we did have at that session. They said, you can't be doing that. But the point is, it started to reveal some elements.
As you mentioned, the process is very sensitive. And again, the guys are very sensitive. Remember what we stood to gain? If we add 1%, 195 million rand. It works the other way around as well. If you cock it up, you lose 195 million rand. So it's great gaining it. It's not all that good losing it. If we look at the report or the screen that you have there, well, it's, yeah.
Middle one, right.
Wat doen ek hierso? All right. So if you look at that, they categorize the data into 3 different categories. And that's what he mentioned. A middle amount, or an average amount, if you can call it that, or you pull the lever back, so you do less of it, or you add some more to it. So that's the 3. There's a little heat map there to say where the data was when they started, a lot of data in the add more or more than normal, a lot of data in the less than normal, and whatever. So this is specifically on a runtime. So what we found was, when the plant is running, it's very important to see the longer that you're running the plant, the higher your recovery would be. So if you stop and start the plant, or if you run it for short whiles, you'll have a lower recovery and you'll have a high amount of variance on it. Again, in the shower, what would you want? Would you rather want a stable temperature or an unstable temperature? So in all ways, it's better to run it longer and have it stable. We knew this. All of the metallurgists, everybody in there knew it. The important part of it is they didn't know it. The data told them this. Remember, they had no idea whatsoever what was going on there. The frother, this is a second thing that we saw on there. once the process for the metallurgist or whatever goes wrong in this concentrate, or in any concentrator for that matter, they don't really know what's going on. Keep in mind, 52 levers. So what do? They knee jerk. By default, it depends on the metallurgist and his approach to things, but normally they just add stuff. And they say, give me more xanthate, give me more frother. And this showed us you're cocking it up. So when you're actually in this process, you don't know what's going on, you can't get your float right, cut back on the frother at first. That's the first thing that you do. You might have the process more unstable, but at least just cut back. It'll give you a better chance at doing something.
I think this was the key element that we discovered, both the obvious, which everybody sort of says, yeah, but you're showing us what we already know. But we also found the counterintuitive, and that was the counterintuitive, where the practice and the domain understanding within the business was basically saying, this is what we do. If we get it stuck, just throw frother in. And it sounds flippant, but it's quite an impressive process when you see it in its entirety.
So this is one of the interacting effects that they found. This is when two effects have an effect, well, they combine, form a new effect, and they present it in that way.
So of the 52, suddenly you can understand we looked at individuals, but now we started to say which started to overlap with each other and started to have a counter or a complementary effect, and that's really what it shows here.
So looking at that, this is when you add frother to the secondary rougher feed, combined with the depressant that you have in the primary cleaner and the second stage. In terms of that, I said we have flotation cells like the bath. We've got about, I think in that process we had 19. So there are 19 minute or micro little steps that you have in there when it flows from one to the other, to the other, to the other, with these different chemicals on it. So they found that if you add frother to the, where was it, at the secondary rougher feed, so if you add frother to quite the early stages of this process, it will have an effect on the primary cleaner second stage, which is quite later on. So there's about, I think there's about 10 float cells between these two. So looking at that same idea, data was categorized in a normal or average amount, more than average, and less than average. That is specifically for the secondary rougher feed with a frother on it. On the second side, or on the other axis, the primary cleaner, we have more than average, average, and less than average, which is imposed on this graph. So under normal conditions, we would run there, on that part, and you can see the average line on it as well. What this thing then told us is, apart from others, if you want to have a higher recovery, just cut back on your primary cleaner, so the depressant in the primary cleaner. You will make it a bit more unstable, but you'll have a higher recovery. What it also told us is, if you're running this process and suddenly for some reason you're starving on frother, you don't have enough, and it runs down to that part, just add more depressant. So whatever you do, don't starve it of depressant as well. Rather chuck in a hell of a lot more depressant. So it'll push you down into that category, but at least into that one, and you'll still have a good recovery. So you'll still gain interests on it.
So I think the key discovery here is an element of not only having information, but giving you information that can help make a response, and then also testing combinations. Because yes, there's recommendations, so you could turn around and say, make that into an AI model, let it just run automatically. But there is always the experience of that individual, and they have years of experience, and you can never factor that out. And our thinking from the onset was, whatever tool we formulate, it must be something that aids and assists the individuals that are currently doing the job, than trying to substitute or replace. And I think that's the key philosophy. And all the scare stuff, we've all been trained up on, what's the movie with the alien that comes and takes us out, Robocop or whatever it might be. There's a fear factor in our decision-making as decision-makers at this stage. And yet AI is thrown at us and we think, well, how must we respond? Do we just switch it off? Where's the red button to switch it off? And I think it's got to take on the philosophy of saying, how are you implementing that technology to aid and assist what is already being done to make them more effective? Because in this broader process, we tested two plants, but there are a number, 7 if I recall correctly.
Yeah, we've got
7 across the entire business. And one of the other challenges of that is running consistently across that business. So even in the dev space, if I send that person, they're going to solve that problem. But in your business, you want people to be operating consistently. You don't want it to be based on the personality of individuals. You want to be able to leverage, because in the incremental game is the profit margin that you're actually trying to accomplish and trying to realize.
So some of the feedback when we took this back to that crocodile pit that he spoke about, do keep in mind...
They gave him a hard time in that session. I felt sorry for him at one point.
We did. Do keep in mind, we do have a couple of PhDs in there. We've got people in there who's got 30 years worth of experience, and probably the most cynical people that I've ever met. Just for context, the one guy some stage threw his phone broke, and when you told him, yeah, but you threw it, he said, but the phone should be stronger. That was his approach. So when we took this back to them, we had 3 types of feedback, or 3 types of reactions to it. The first one was, well, yeah, what you gave me, I can explain, I know this. Cool, we didn't. The second thing is, I had a suspicion that this might be the way that it works. And the third one is, wow, this is interesting, and it's worth testing out when we're going forward now. So, from your side, I don't know.
Yeah, I think the key element that I also saw in that is the conversation changed rapidly. I've, over the years, been involved in custom development. You go in, there is an element of trust that has to be exchanged. Customer looks at you and says, well, can you do what I really need to get done? I hadn't met any of these guys in the room up to that point, but I found myself going from chatting about what we discovered, supporting Anton in what he was describing, and the next minute being drawn in as if I'd been part of the business for 20 years. That's really what the mindset that we moved into. We moved into a realm where people were seeing the opportunity to make radical and significant differences in their business, and I was part of that. And it was obviously a great privilege, but I think it just shows you and demonstrates the potential of what applying this technology can actually do and make in each business.
So to conclude on this, it showed that data does tell powerful stories. You can look at the data and you can figure out things that you've never known before. You can understand the interrelationships which your mind would not be able to fathom without technologies or algorithms such as this. You can therefore predict what's coming next. Therefore, you can do optimal corrective action. So in the morning when I walk in there with my mobile app and I can see this is what was happening yesterday, and to correct this, I'm starving on frother, please add more depressant to that part of the process, which might bring us closer to that 1%. 195 million rand. I promise you, we as Lonmin do need that now. So specifically, what stood out for me on this project, and this is very interesting, just as a side note, we had novices coming in who had absolutely no idea what's going on there, and they tackled the problem with more accuracy than what I expected of them. That's the first part of it. The second part of it was the commitment and the attitude thereof, because do know I did not send them all of the most clean and good data. I didn't, because we wanted to test this. We were cynical ourselves, and that was the thing. So the commitment and the attitude stood out. We used to call them Wabri, which is the combination of Warren and Aubrey, how they approach the processes, how they went the extra mile. And I have to mention one single thing that stood out for me, and that was that you can leave your car idling for more than 30 minutes. You can rock up at Lonmin, park your car underneath the parking garage, get out, lock it, get in another car and drive away, and your car can keep on idling for an hour.
I discovered a new benefit of the 3 Series. If you walk away, you can lock and it carries on running. And we were in a key point in this discussion, and they said to me, your car's still running. I said, here's the key, sorted it out. We've got to deal with this. But I did discover a new BMW feature at the time.
So do we.
Okay.
So yeah, any questions? Anything that stands out? I know we probably over
I think, is there any questions? And I know it's close to lunch. If anybody wants to come chat to us, to understand a little bit more. We didn't touch a lot on the machine learning. I know you guys have heard that, but in principle, the models, etc., that can be constructed to help predict is what eliminates that time gap. So you don't wait 3 minutes. You start to work with the data, play with the data, and you can see the outcome and the results of what you're doing. So it makes even that operator creative in what they're doing in their job to find better ways of running the business. And I think that's the key part.
Thanks, Warren and Antoine. It's excellent. Yeah, thanks for sharing that journey. So who of you is from the Terminator generation? Who's from the Matrix generation? Slightly more. That is the stories they told this morning, and that is the era of academics and activists. That is not the world we're living with. That is not the issues we have on the table in organizations when it comes to these technologies. These technologies are not doom and gloom and scary. They might be in certain instances, but for us, they are opportunities. And for your developers, they are opportunities to make your value chain in your business better. So, sorry, we stole 5 minutes from your lunch. Apologies for that. But we hope we inspired you a little bit about the potential of these new technologies. Thanks so much for your time.